Everybody, welcome to the 244th annual reading of the Declaration of Independence.
And speakers following.
I want to thank everybody for coming out here today. Typically, this celebration is emceed by the Ancient Honorable Artillery Company, but the city has told them that they can't do it today, so that gives us the opportunity to do it right here from the ground. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Welcome to the 244th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Woo! To open our celebration today, we will be having Sarah sing the national anthem. If you have a hat, please remove it.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous floods for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
We're going to open today's celebration with the Patriot Pastor Garrett Lear, who will lead us with an invocation and a little bit of history.
I hold up for you today this parchment Declaration of American Independence. And I hold up for you today this pen. And I wonder how many of you recognize what this is. It's a turkey feather. And the turkey almost became our national bird instead of the bald eagle. "1,458 words that changed the world forever." America was being watched and became the envy of the whole world. We are here today to proclaim, to commemorate, to celebrate, and peacefully protest those who would try to destroy what we love. At least I know that's why I am here. How about you? I will have no other king but King Jesus. This is holy ground. This is sacred ground. My ancestors fought for it, and so have I. Without any reservation, I can say I love my native land, America. Not as much as I love my Savior, but pretty close. This country has meant so much to so many people worldwide. Why is that? Because of this. And I have held up that parchment, that old parchment, the Declaration of American Independence. The document was written in the blood of the martyrs in the cause of liberty and freedom for all. The signers literally signed their death warrants when they affixed their signatures. John Hancock signed the largest so King George could see it without his spectacles. Now that's a true bravura. Would you take the pen and do that? Besides the almost 400 years of my ancestry on this continent, and the part of it later known as these States of America United, I had ancestors that came here to this state of Massachusetts in the 18th, 19th, and early 20th century from Italy, Belgium, Holland, England, Ireland, Scotland, and Canada. They are buried in such places as Lexington and Winthrop. They loved this country, made it their own through hard work and swore an allegiance, an oath of allegiance to defend her, and taught me to love her and do the same, which I have all of my 72 years of life, which began but a stone's throw from this very spot. I had one lapse in my patriotism after I was honorably medically discharged against my consent from the U.S. Army rather than being deployed with special forces for combat in Vietnam, where I wanted to go. I considered migrating to Australia. The Aussies said they would be glad to have me join them and would reimburse me for my move if I stayed for a year and became a citizen. It did not take me long to decide, no, I'm an American, and as an American I will live and die here in my homeland. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. The Aussies had no declaration of American independence. They had no declaration of independence. Some will remind us of the shot heard round the world, which they should, and I do. Growing up on Lexington Green, which is also sacred ground to the freedom and liberty of America, and the world did something to me. Because of the day, April 19, 1775, and because of Bunker Hill, June 17, 1775, and because of other such brave battles, we could make a declaration of American independence. Blood, sweat, tears, prayers, bullets, gunpowder, bayonets, tomahawks, and rocks. You get the picture? So we could have a free country and not live under the imperial, monarchical, oligarchy, and tyranny as much of the world was doing and still is. We the people, what a unique and what a biblical concept. The great experiment in self-government. At present, that is being challenged, but it is still in effect. And will stay in effect on my watch. 1,458 words that inspired the world to believe that the same old could be changed for better for all mankind. A document, a testimony, a covenant, which was at the time a historic signing of a death certificate for all those 56 signers, 3 of whom are buried nearby in the Granary Cemetery: Samuel Adams, John Hancock, and Robert Treat Paine. Those men were awfully familiar with the ground we are standing on now, including those of you that are standing on the very site of the Boston Massacre. That's the circle you're standing on there. Several times, years ago, I spoke for the Boston Tea Party in Faneuil Hall. Over there, you know, the one with the grasshopper on top. Standing on the same stage as so many great men had stood, you can see where wear marks are on the wood flooring. I had an epiphany. It was though they said to me, "Son, you must carry on for us what we started now that we are gone. Do not let us be forgotten or let the people forget what we fought for." I have had the same experience on Lexington Green and many other places. So on this beautiful summer day, when an old warrior like me could be cruising on the lake or other such take it easy, I'm here doing what I can and should do. So help me God is my fervent prayer. And I want you to raise your hands and say the same thing. Raise your hands and say, so help me God.
So help me God.
1,458 words that changed the world. The committee of 5 that wrote it, and all those signers agreed to it unanimously. What a miracle that was. And trusted in the Lord, divine providence, to support it. They put up or pledged their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor. We must do the same. Why? Well, many reasons. Some I have already stated, and here are some more. No country is more open, more generous, and has done more for the cause of freedom than America has. Honor, justice, and humanity forbid us tamely to surrender that freedom which we received from our gallant ancestors and which our innocent posterity have a right to receive from us. We cannot endure the infamy and guilt of resigning succeeding generations to that wretchedness which inevitably awaits them if we basely entail hereditary bondage on them. Thomas Jefferson, 1775, President of the United States, number 3, the penman of the Declaration. The British government hated this document so much that the Howe brothers, that's Admiral and General Howe, tried to broker a deal in which the Revolutionary War would cease if the Declaration of American Independence would be surrendered. No deal. In the Second War of American Independence, otherwise known as the War of 1812, the British came again to take away our freedom and liberty. They marched on Washington, D.C. and burned our newly constructed White House. POTUS number 4, that's President of the United States, number 4, James Madison, was not there, and First Lady Dolly courageously saved George Washington's portrait and the original Declaration of Independence from destruction, which now, of course, is in our National Archives Museum. Not only was it read at state houses, church bells told the reading of the document by patriot pastors and churches throughout the 13 colonies. I, as a modern-day patriot pastor, have done the same wherever I have served. And my prayer today is that we will also do what they did and pledge what they pledged and sign it now again in this generation. And as I said before, we're going to raise our hands again and make and take this vow. So help me God.
So help me God.
1,458 words that changed the world and keep it changed. Isaiah 33:22. For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king, he will save us. We will have no other king but King Jesus.
Amen.
Someone has stolen my country, and I want her back now.
Amen.
Huzzah! Hallelujah!
Hallelujah!
Amen!
Amen!
Oh Lord, make it so.
Make it so.
My name is Steve O'Brien, and I live in Kittery Point, Maine. And I believe the Lord gave me the song for the National Day of Prayer. It's called A Prayer for America. allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh God, please hear this prayer, and won't you please save America. And from east to west and from north to south, please protect our land. And may we be humble and seek your face, and to turn from our wicked ways. Oh God, please hear from heaven, won't you please forgive our sins. Oh Lord, hear your people cry, and won't you please take and heal our land. Oh God of our fathers, in Jesus' name, won't you please save America. Amen.
Thank you very much. Up next, we're going to have a speech by Eddie. Come on up, Eddie. He'll be talking about how great individuals make a great nation.
Eddie. Hey. Good morning, everyone. Happy Independence Day. 2020 is proving to be a rather tumultuous year, with I'm sure there's much more to come. We are experiencing a paradigm shift. This country is changing, and it's changing fast. So it's really important that we understand some of the choices that are being set before us right now. On one hand, we can allow ourselves to be ruled by tyrants and watch as our country continues its slide into disunity and chaos. Or on the other hand, we can awaken to the fact that defending our civil rights are rather simple, though it will require fortitude and courage. Their defense requires that we express them continuously and conspicuously, and their limits will only be measured by our ability and willingness to assert them against those who would trespass against them, however far that may take us. Thus, it is to these implications of this reality to which I speak to you today. These days, the political has spilled into nearly all aspects of our lives, infecting everything with its disharmony. We've been caught in a false left-right dichotomy, and this has completely derailed our ability to have productive discussions with those we disagree with. So now, we're at a crisis point. Action is needed, but it needs to be unified. We can't afford to allow the politics of identity to divide and silence us. So to move forward, we need to be standing together with those who share our values, such as accountability, integrity, and discipline. Without these, you can't even have a functioning society, let alone a civil one. What this country needs are individuals coming together, utilizing each other's unique insights and perspectives to tackle the problems facing our society. But these sort of interactions are not going to happen if we continue to rely on social media and our broken and limiting political worldview. We need to see past the superficial things that divide us and recognize our common humanity. When we do this, the problems that affect us all will become self-evident. Things like broken families, drug addiction, and a failing school system. And not least, but the rejection of truth, which is the worst failing of all. I suggest that we return to the values that made this country great in the first place, the sort of values expressed in the Constitution and in our Bill of Rights. Documents that serve to remind us of the social agreement that was made to conduct ourselves as free men indivisible under God, with liberty and justice for all. This nation was founded on self-governance, built with individuals mature enough to conduct their social interactions in such a way that did not require top-down executive control. We were meant to be free from such arbitrary rules and free to do as we please, provided we do not harm the liberty of others. But here we are in 2020, and it seems many of our fellows have forgotten or have never learned how to act. We now see the sort of behavior reminiscent of an unruly child, the sort of behavior that requires a firm hand to maintain order. This is not in keeping with our Constitution, and we will not find the virtues of self-governance in such childish behaviors. So we need to be emphasizing our accountability so that we can hold ourselves and others responsible for their actions. When people are responsible, we can set standards of excellence. We need to promote integrity, because to promote integrity is to promote a society of trustworthy and reliable individuals. And we need to instill discipline in both ourselves and in our youth, for that will be the generation with the work ethic and the willpower to do what needs to be done. We need to rebuild the American spirit, for it is within this spirit that true Americans are made. And we're going to need these true Americans going forward. These will be the leaders that embody all that we stand for and can lead us back to our path. We cannot rely on just voting to fix this, for that is just passing the buck to someone else at a time when this country needs every person it can to stand up and reverse our slide into tyranny. These true Americans will have to be uncompromising in their convictions to do what needs to be done. These true Americans will have to reform and build new institutions for the running of society, for we are no longer served by our government that has sold us out to bigger business and only seems to cater to wealthy interests. So this, in essence, is the message I bring. We must take root in the spirit of liberty and virtue and remake ourselves. For only when we embody the American spirit ourselves and we demand the same, can we demand the same and more from our leaders. Then once again, we can live in an ordered, self-governing, and liberty-loving society, but not before. So I hope you will all take my words to heart, to be and to raise your children to be true Americans that will fight to save our country. Thank you everyone for your time and attention. Have a great Independence Day. Stay free.
Thank you, Eddie. That was great. Now, if you don't know, Massachusetts was the flashpoint that ignited the Revolutionary War to gain independence from the British monarchy. Rife with revolutionary history, Boston is where Paul Revere set out on his midnight ride to warn the patriots in Lexington that the British were coming to arrest Adams and Hancock and seize the arms and conquer. The shot heard around the world was fired the next day on April 19th, 1775. This is why it is so important here in Massachusetts, here in Boston, to hold on to our history, to cherish it and to respect it, and honor the sacrifices of our founders and this country that they gave us. Next up I have Rayla, who would like to have a speech. If you please just come right out in front.
Hey, Rayla! Woo! Yeah! Rayla! Like your dress.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. How are you today?
Yes.
My name is Rayla Campbell. I'm the Republican candidate running for Congress in District 7. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here with all of you. Today, I want to say happy birthday to America. You know, what a wonderful day it is to be here with all you American patriots who love freedom in our country. Welcome to all of you. Today is a celebration, the greatest country on earth, the United States. We need to stress the word united. Again, here we are, working together, we need to. Working through our differences, working for putting the normalcy back in America. Together, here in Massachusetts, my people of District 7, together we can stand the grounds where liberty was born, right here in Boston. We will protect it. We will honor it. We do not descend from weak men and women or timid at all. We come from brave patriots like Abigail Adams and Paul Revere. Patriots like them I will not allow the anti-American left to destroy our incredible country that we love. I will stand and be a voice for all in my district. I will stand and bring back sanity and the rule of law for Massachusetts. I will not be an activist for myself or for the radical left or any of their agenda. I will be an advocate for you. When you send me to Congress in November, I will do the job that the American people want me to do. I will stand side by side with everybody who wants to love and protect our beautiful history, our great country, our statues, our flag. We stand for our great American flag. Yes. I want to say God bless all of you. I hope you will stand with me. Follow me on Facebook at Rayla for Congress. Also go to my website. Stand with me to bring sanity, rule of law, love for our country, our history, our great history. Stand with me to bring sanity back to our country, to bring it back to Massachusetts, where liberty, as I said, was born, and we will never let it die.
That's right.
Thank you, everybody. God bless you. God bless America. Happy Independence Day.
Before I came over here, I stopped at the grave of Sam Adams, buried about a block and a half away from here. A quote from Sam Adams I think is pertinent. "The liberties of our country, the freedoms of our civil constitution are worth defending at all hazards. It is our duty to defend them against all attacks. We have received them as a fair inheritance from our worthy ancestors. They purchased them for us with toil and danger and expense of treasure and blood." Sam Adams was a son of Boston. He was a governor of Massachusetts, and he's widely called the father of the Revolution. Next up, I have Tom Moore.
Thank you. Happy 244th birthday, America. Yeah! I was the master of ceremonies in that wonderful building in 2007 on December 16th, the anniversary of the Tea Party, for the first modern day Tea Party. And we did honor Sam Adams that day. There's a statue of him right over there, and it says, "A statesman and a patriot." I believe we have that kind of man as a president, Donald Trump. He's kind of a businessman. He's learning as he's going, and I think he's getting better as he goes along. I hope he gets reelected. I hate to think what's going to happen if he does not. But what I'm going to say is the same thing I said in Faneuil Hall. I'm going to back up the mic a bit. Wake up, America! Yeah! Wake up! Okay, so I'm here. I'm an instructor at Camp Constitution, and it's a summer camp. We are meeting this summer from Sunday, July 19th to Friday, July 24th. We're a family camp. Entire families, parents come up with their children for the week, and it's absurdly cheap because most of us teach for free. And so there's plenty of room, and our website is campconstitution.net. So what we teach, of course we teach the Constitution. We teach the Declaration of Independence, which my friend Rich here is about to read. Rich has been an instructor up at Camp Constitution. And we teach other things that are very useful to study the cycles of history. History does not move in a straight line. It moves in cycles. It moves in seasons. And now we're in the winter season, just like we were 400 years ago. 400 years ago is when we started with the Mayflower Compact this December in Plymouth and the arrival of the Mayflower. The Mayflower Compact was kind of our first constitution, as Pastor Lear, by the way, Pastor Lear is coming up to campconstitution.net, a place you won't forget. He's coming up this summer. You can see him speak on that. There is no one more qualified in this country to speak on that. He is a descendant of, I believe it was John Howland, and also of Lexington Patriots. He grew up in Lexington, Massachusetts, and he actually beat up the town bully behind the Minuteman statue. It's hard to believe, being 7 feet tall, that anybody could bully him, but I guess you were 14 or something at the time. I still think you probably had the reach on the guy. Anyway, he's coming up to campconstitution.net. So I'm going to mention on this fourth a few of the landmarks of American independence. As I said, it's the quadricentennial of the Pilgrims landing with the Mayflower, with their compact. They were separatists. They were not looking for religious tolerance. When they left England, they found religious tolerance in Holland. Holland's a very tolerant country to this day. But they thought if they stayed there that their children would be corrupted, and that's why they came here. They were very biblical, and they looked to God. It was very hard when they first got here. Some people died, but when they had a chance to go back on a ship, they did not. Not one of them went back. That's what they were made of. So, Pastor Lear, as I said, descended from John Howland. He's not the only preacher at Camp Constitution. We also have not one but two wonderful black preachers. Reverend Stephen Kraft, and he actually graduated from Harvard Divinity School. And I joke with him, you graduated from Harvard and you still have your faith. Well, that's a miracle right there. Another one is Brother Earl Wallace. He was a businessman. He wrote The Three-Dimensional Leader. They have very different styles, but they're all very good preachers, along with Reverend the Patriot Pastor Garrett Lear. Okay, so a next landmark was the Great Awakening, the coming to God that happened. We sort of, after like 80 years, we fell away from God. These are 80-year cycles. We're in an 80-year cycle now. And we needed a great awakening, especially what happened in Salem with the witch trials. And in the witch trials, you had there was a craze, and there's sort of a craze in the country now, and we can't operate that way. We need to be one nation under God. In God we trust. Our three ideals are on each of our coins. In God we trust, liberty, and what's the third one? This is tough. It's Latin. Anybody? A pluribus unum, out of many one. That's what actually I teach on, and that's called our union. And this document here says, we the people, we hold title to our country, by the way, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, because our union was very imperfect under the Articles of the Confederation. Yeah, so, what did Christ say? Lincoln was speaking from Christ when he says, and somebody mentioned that earlier, I believe our guitarist said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And right now we're very much a house divided. We need another great awakening. I'm just going to pray briefly. Lord, give us another great awakening. Let your spirit flow through this country from sea to shining sea. Bring us all back. Unite us under you, O Lord. Without you we are lost. I pray this in Jesus' name today. Amen. Amen. Okay, good. Some friends here. Okay, so... And George Soros certainly understands divide and conquer and dividing us. And all of these groups are Soros groups. If you belong to Antifa, if you belong to BLM, you're either getting paid or you're getting played. And if you're just getting played and you're not getting paid, well, you're not doing too good, are you? Okay. So, another, what else we got here? So, right here on March 5th, 1770, right on that spot, the first American patriot fell. Right there. His name was Crispus Attucks. He was Native American and he was half black. Our first poet was black, Phyllis Wheatley. Yes. Okay. So, and his name was Crispus Attucks, the one that fell there. So, another landmark, April 19th, 1775, of course, and that is, maybe the founding of America happened on Lexington Green. But one of the patriots said, if we have to begin a country in blood, let it begin here, and it certainly did. And then and that's where, by the way, I should say, Camp Constitution has a new house right near Lexington Green, and some of us are going over after for a little bit of food. If you're a family type and you're thinking of Camp Constitution, please join us for some food after that. campconstitution.net, and we're going to have events all throughout the year at this wonderful new facility in Lexington that we have. June 17, 1775, right up the Freedom Trail, and that was Bunker Hill, okay? And the man that executed the massacre at Lexington Green, his name was Pitcairn, and he was felled by a black soldier by the name of Barzillai Lou, avenged what happened, and he was up there on Bunker Hill, and there were a bunch of, I don't know, even maybe 100 black soldiers, 150 black,
27 American Indians.
and 27 American Indians up on that hill. We the people as one, defying tyranny. We have to do that again now. Okay, so July 2nd, that's the day we voted for independence, and John Adams wrote to his wife that this day, July 2nd, will be celebrated for fireworks, kind of ironic. Then they did some editing, and the final version came out on July 4th, but it wasn't signed. John Hancock signed it nice and big on July 4th so that King George could read it without his spectacles. However, it wasn't signed by the rest of them until August 2nd. And but okay, another one is July 9th. It was read in New York by someone next to George Washington, and the entire British fleet was out in the harbor. You can read it, but you have to win it. You have to win the independence. So for those of Black Lives Matter that are trying to tell black people that they're somehow the slaves of George Washington and all that own slaves, actually George Washington is your servant now. He's not around anymore, but this country, this document that he gave you, and it took so much fighting for all of these years with black people and white people, so that everybody could earn these wonderful rights. Now that you have them, let's not throw it away to George Soros and Antifa and BLM. Let's wake up to who is pulling the strings. And the guy that runs those organizations is white. He's not American. He's from Hungary. And he is so evil that Hungary will not allow him back in his own country. That's the truth. Okay, so that's about all I have for that. I have a song too. And again, campconstitution.net. And Brianna has pamphlets too. For anybody that might be interested, or anybody that knows a family that might be interested, we have space this summer. Now I'll play a song. Oh, do you want a Cromwell Reason tone, or do you want the Fire of Liberty?
Fire of Liberty!
Liberty! Pull this down more than I will be heard.
Long time ago we took a stand at Bunker Hill. Did you forget what life was for? Now have you lost the will? Freedom, right here not far away. You take another look around, we'll all be living in a police state. Used to live by the field of rice, man, and it worked out pretty well. Now they redefine them one by one. Shred it all to hell, I'm talking about your freedom. Dies a little bit every day, but you feel that much safer when they take them all away. Freedom! It dies a little bit every day. You feel that much safer when they take them all away. There ain't no Andy Jackson and there ain't no JFK. There's only you and me and Donnie Trump standing in their way. Freedom. My friend, you hold the keys. Now you're gonna stand up now or bow down on your knees. Freedom! And we hold the keys. Yeah, we better stand up now or live life on the knees. Who trains all those terrorists and who tells them what to do? Who's burning down our cities, start a war between me and you, dividing our union. Of we the people strong and one, till they close down every church house and they take away every gun. Ye the people and our union strong and one, and they close down every family business. They're gonna stick a needle in everyone. Late last night in Lexington, I ran to Paul Revere. He said nobody's waking up. Know what's going on around here? Freedom. Rider in the night. Now you're coming with us, or going down without a fight. Freedom! Rider in the night. Now you're coming with us, or going down without a fight. And we call upon you, Jesus, Son of Almighty God. But I know that you can't save us till we remember just who you are. You gave us our freedom, and you blessed us more than kings. Unto you all power and glory in this new great awakening. You gave us our freedom, Lord, and you blessed us more than kings. Unto you all power and glory in this new great awakening. Hoorah! Camp Constitution.net. Thank you. Happy 4th.
Thank you, Tom. All right, everyone, now it is time to read the Declaration of Independence. I have the fabulous Rich Howell, also of Camp Constitution. Just come to the front of the table, please.
It is the glorious 4th. What everybody is doing here today is very providential. We are here at the site of the old State House. It is no accident, if you guide my hand right over there across the street, was the site of the first meeting house in Boston. Their detractors would have called them Puritans. They consider themselves believers rooted in biblical truths. Also here, has been pointed out, the blood of the first martyrs, really, of the American Revolution fell. And what we're doing here is not just honoring the day and the Declaration of Independence, we are carrying it forth. We are not allowing this today to go unrecognized. That's right. What I want to do here are 3 things. Just briefly give you a history of what led up to the Declaration of Independence. What that document is, everybody has heard of it. Many of you have heard it read. Some of you have read it yourselves, but what does it really mean? Yes, the ceremony was canceled. However, we get to read the document the way it was meant to be understood.
Yeah. Yes.
So, what happened? Why do we celebrate the glorious 4th instead of the 2nd? Well, on the 2nd, they voted to separate from Great Britain. However, the reason the 4th was chosen as the date, the glorious 4th, was because it became official on the 4th. They agreed to do it on the 4th. They made it official. And actually, many of the signers did sign on that day. A great many signed later on. At the end of the month in August as well, there was just, and not every man who was there that day signed that document. He was not able to. And some that were not there that day signed a document on behalf of their new states. So, what I want to do here is go through, briefly, what the Declaration of Independence was trying to say by sections. Now, as we discussed, by biblical times, men have chosen the way they were to be governed. That's what our founders believed, as did the philosophers who influenced the revolution. When government fails in its proper role, it's the duty of the governed to rectify it. And as a result, the Declaration acknowledges the responsibility by showing just cause for this act. God-given rights form the basis of mankind's governance. They are known as natural laws and natural rights. These are the self-evident truths of the Declaration. Over many centuries, societies had generated into tyranny. It was the God-given right and duty of man to reclaim his original birthright. They talk about the history of the present king. Why? The king was an office holder in the British Empire. He wasn't an absolute ruler. He was not supposed to be. The dynasty that brought his family into power had come in under parliamentary and British constitutional precepts, or English constitutional precepts, ironically. But he himself had a major departure from that. Firstborn native Hanoverian king wished to rule as an absolute monarch, and Parliament was now subservient to the king, and legitimate government authority was important, as the document explains why these courses of action were taken. All laws passed in the colonial legislatures were sent to Britain for approval. Any such laws passed by them needed the king's signature, and under the common law it was understood it was a formality. But George III abused this privilege. Most of the colonies had governors appointed by the king at this point. Also something that was not supposed to happen. Started out as benign, and then later on it degenerated. They could not approve any law absent a clause suspending it until he actually approved it himself. He withheld his assent, causing a great turmoil in the colonies because laws were not put into effect. He hoped to take advantage of the turmoil to gain more power. While governors would not draw updated lines for legislative districts, depriving the right of proper representation. In other words, growing populations would have diluted representation. The Admiralty courts, major trading force here. We had a large merchant fleet at that point. The Admiralty courts were moved to Halifax, Nova Scotia to ensure greater compliance with the king's will. There, the crown officials had more influence, and treason cases were to be tried in Britain. He dissolved the elected provincial assemblies, such as the one that met here behind us, when he had no legal authority to do so. By refusing to allow new assemblies to be elected, which he had no legal right to do, the authority for those assemblies had returned to the people by right and by law. As with the laws, the absence of legal authority caused great potential for anarchy and public danger. In order to stifle the growth of the colonies, he attempted to cut off new settlements from other places. In doing this, he meant to weaken the power of the colonies. He attempted to gain power over the judiciary. These are timeless, folks. By obstructing laws the provinces needed to maintain them. For instance, he refused his assent in a North Carolina law due to a clause which the legislature refused to surrender. He hoped to control the judiciary here in order to enforce his edicts. He usurped the provincial power from the provinces by paying judges so he can continue to control judicial acts by having them in his payroll. All judges now served at the king's pleasure. By controlling their pay, obviously hoped to control them. He arbitrarily set up in the colonies crown officials to regulate and tax the population and increase his own power again. By setting up large government structures, he had great numbers of officials to enforce his will. Many of this played out here on the streets of Boston just prior to 1775 and before. Unusual concentrations of the Royal Army and the Royal Navy were stationed in the colonies. This was unprecedented since no foreign threat had existed. He set up military officers as royal governors. A British sea captain in the Royal Navy was the governor of South Carolina, and here in Massachusetts, we had the commander-in-chief of the Royal Army sitting, trying to control this building behind us. The Declaratory Act of 1766 declared the King and Parliament had full authority to govern the colonies. The provincial assemblies were practically void, and the colonists were stripped of any voice in governance. This was the first time any such notion was put into effect. The Quartering Act required British military personnel to be housed and fed at the provincial's residence at the provincial's expense. This occurred during peacetime. British military and officials accused of murder would be tried in Britain. The soldiers that were accused here in the Boston Massacre, only 2 were found guilty. They were defended by John Adams as one of their counselors. They had a fair trial. 2 were branded by the hand, but that was not good enough. After that, they said that America was not a fit place to try these cases. They were going to be tried in Britain under the control of Crown officials, not even the English people as a whole. The Restraining Acts of 1775 outlawed colonial trade with foreign nations, cutting off their commerce. Taxes such as the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, and the Tea Act were imposed. The Admiralty courts, which had no juries to deal with smuggling accusations, most of which were manufactured. Invoking the Treason Act of 1514, which goes back to Henry VIII, my friends, before there were any colonies, declared Americans could be and needed to be tried in Britain for any potential offenses or pretended offenses. They would lose the right to trial of jury. Not that the English would not give them one, but they were not going to get an open court. They were going to get something fixed by the ministry. The Quebec Act extended the boundaries of that province to the Ohio River, abrogating the agreements that the state and provincial charters had to go sea to sea. By doing this, the feudal French system of government was reintroduced to set a precedent for colonial policy and administration. The venerable English common law was forced out of the province. The 1774 Intolerable Acts, among which outlawed Massachusetts town meetings, closed the port of Boston. The New York Assembly was suspended for failing to fully implement the Quartering Act. After a force was authorized in 1775, the King declared his intention of conquering the colonies as if a hostile power. The British seized provincial business vessels and bombarded several towns, including Norfolk, Virginia. This forced the Americans to form a navy as well as an army. Due to recruiting problems in Britain, particularly in England, George III had to turn to his Hessian allies in what was then known as the Holy Roman Empire to fill his ranks. He also forced Americans who were captured on the high seas, which were a great number of them, including out of this port, they were forced to serve in the British forces. Many of these men mutinied. They were initially given an opportunity to opt out of combat duty, but that was soon taken away. They either escaped, were executed, or sent to prison. Hopes were most elected to go rather than serve their enemies. Even after the start of hostilities, the colonists attempted a reconciliation through the Olive Branch Petition and many others. These were answered only by insult and repeated injury. That is what happened. And after doing that, there was no recourse, ladies and gentlemen. At that point, there was only one course left. I just wanted to give you a background because as we read the Declaration, I ask everybody to listen in silence. Concentrate fully on the Declaration. I know it would be great to record everything, but if you silence the phones, everyone here should get the moment and what this Declaration actually meant. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms of government to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the repository of the public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such disillusions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage the migrations hither, and raising the conditions of a new appropriation of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of officers and the amount of payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out of their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislature. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution, unacknowledged by our laws, and giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond the seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death desolation and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince who's thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of the attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold him as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, peace friends. We therefore the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right, are to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. I certainly couldn't have read it the way they have written it. But I pray that all of us here have a good understanding of what had happened on that day and what this document means. I want, on behalf of all of us, to thank you folks here for joining us, to thank everybody that came to celebrate this day. Not too long after the word of the Declaration hit Boston, this document was read from that portico to a thronged audience which understood every letter, syllable, and mark in this document. They forged forward. Now in these times, it is up to us to forge ahead as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you everybody for coming out today to honor and respect the tradition of the annual reading of the Declaration of Independence. I find it perhaps symbolic that the sun has come out to shine. Perhaps there's still hope for the Republic. Thank you everybody. Happy birthday, America. Have a very safe rest of your holiday. And maybe we'll have to do it again next year.
Thank you, Gary.